G'day! In this video, we are previewing the Scourge of Ghyran rules for the Lumineth Realm-Lords. Scourge of Ghyran is offering each faction a set of seasonal rules that are match play legal for the upcoming season, General's Handbook 25-26. Looking into the Lumineth Realm-Lords, you have gained 3 new heroic traits, a brand new unlimited spell lore, as well as 2 Scourge of Ghyran alternative war scrolls, one being the Light of Aarion, the other one being the Venari Banner Blade. Now, these units will have a separate pitch battle profile, and they can be substituted for the original war scroll. You can't use both the Scourge of Ghyran and the original war scroll in the same army list. You can use them in an army of renown. You can't use them in a regiment of renown. So let's crack some Aether Quartz and get enlightened. Starting off with our heroic traits, and Lumineth have gained 3 new heroic traits that are being added to your existing 3 options. Flawless Commander is a passive ability that adds 2 to the movement characteristic of friendly Lumineth Realm-Lords units while they're wholly within 12 inches of this unit. Now, it is basically a word-to-word replacement for last season's Field Sergeant, the Honor Guard ability, except it also applies to infantry units that can fly. Previous one couldn't do it, now you can. So this is going to help your Hurricane Wind Mage to also benefit from this movement ability. This is great for your Alarith and your Venari units, who tend to be on the slower side when it comes to mobility, and it's going to be great for them to move up on the battlefield, get in position, and be where they want to be sooner. And especially because they want to start doing some of their defensive bonuses, being that your Venari with the Shining Company want to be set up, embracing and getting ready to be charged. Or when it comes to your Alarith units, you want to be sitting on an objective, contesting, to be tapping into the fortitude of the earth. So either way, this will benefit quite nicely. This will also help a more aggressive play style with units like your Blade Lords or your Light of Aarion. It will help you increase your total threat range potential from your Sentinels to potentially even let them fire without having to take that penalty from the Lofted Shots ability. This Flawless Commander is definitely going to be suited to have on a hero that wants to be staying close or centrally located to multiple infantry units. Things like, for example, the Cathalar or your Banner Blade, for example, are a couple of heroes that come to mind here. Aether Quartz Requisitioner is a once per battle reaction for when you declare a spell ability from a Lumineth Realm-Lords wizard within this unit's combat range. You get to add 3 to the casting roll for that spell. Now, this trait works on any spell ability. It includes magical intervention. It includes summoning spells. Because it's a modifier on a roll, it's not going to work on spells casted by Teclis if he's tapping into that Archmage passive ability. The trait's not going to stop you from doing a miscast, and it is only applied on a single spell cast. It's not for all of the spells cast by that wizard in that turn. You will need to declare when you're using this casting boost before the opponent attempts to unbind, so you can't cast your spell, the opponent unbinds, and then you try to chuck the +3 to then override it. It doesn't work like that. Cast your spell, decide if you want to add the +3 to it, then let your opponent try to unbind. Now, this is going to be really useful for your critical spells that you must go off, especially in turns where they must happen. Especially, you could mess around with your magical intervention. It could be messing up the battlefield, bringing up a manifestation to disrupt the board state. It could have some nice synergy with our Light of Aarion. Again, we'll get to that later. And it also could even help you guarantee that important protection of Hish spell when you need that ward protection. Finally, we have Martial Perfectionist, and that triggers in any combat phase and lets you pick a visible enemy unit within 12 inches of this unit that is damaged or has had some models slain in the turn to be the target. Now, you get to roll a dice, and on a 3-up, you add 1 to wound rolls for combat attacks made by friendly Lumineth Realm-Lords infantry units that target that enemy unit for the rest of the turn. So this ability will trigger before any fight abilities in the combat phase. So if you're thinking about how you get some damage onto these units, you will need to inflict them in a prior phase. That could be shooting, it could be spell damage, it could be any other type of damage, some charge mortals, whatever it might be. You need to find damage before the combat phase. Because it's any combat phase, you could also be looking at damage being allocated through magical intervention or cover fire. The +1 to wound bonus is only for infantry units, so it's probably best to be used on units like your Wardens, your Blade Lords, Aarion. Although when I think about the Blade Lords, it's not valuable at all if you're planning to use Perfect Strike. Your Wardens and your Blade Lords, when they're using the Flurry of Blows, will gain the most value because of the raw volume of attacks that that'll put out. And Aarion, I did mention earlier, he deserves the mention because the profile would then turn into 2s to hit, 2s to wound on all of the attacks, and that makes him an incredibly threatening, if not one of the most reliable, deadly melee options, not only in your list, but actually in the game. Like pound for pound, this makes the Light of Aarion incredible value. Lumineth also gained a new spell lore in the Lore of Prismatic Resonance, and it's an alternative to the Lore of Hish, and by choosing this spell lore over the Lore of Hish, you are giving up Speed of Hish, Overwhelming Heat, and the Protection of Hish, one or the other. You can't have both. Now, when I look at the Lore of Prismatic Resonance, it is truly unique. I have never seen a spell lore like this in the game. And part of the reason is the fact that this is the only spell lore that has 3 unlimited spells. And it's not just that. When you look at the spells, and we'll talk about the spells in a second, they actively encourage you to cast the same spell multiple times in the phase. All of these spells have a casting value of 6, which not only make them reliable, in fact, more reliable than the Lore of Hish, which has that 7 and 8. You'll notice the theme of the spells are aimed more towards damaging your opponent and debuffing your opponent rather than buffing up yourself. Now, I will call out with a word of warning that the Cenari Enlightener can't use its Rune of Enflay ability with the spell lore. So that particular rune, if you look at the wording, it is very specific, tied to Speed of Hish, Overwhelming Heat, and Protection of Hish. It has no interaction with the spell lore unless some type of errata comes out, a post that I'm not aware of. Anyway, let's look at the 3 spells and talk a little bit about them because I think they are good, like really good. Beam of Hish lets you pick a visible enemy unit within 18 inches that hasn't been picked to be the target of this ability this battle round. Now, you will have to add 1 to the casting value for each time this spell has been cast by a friendly wizard this turn. Now, if successful, you will inflict D3 plus X mortal damage to the target, and the X value is based on the number of times the spell has been previously cast by a friendly Lumineth wizard to a maximum of 3 this turn. So, let's break it down. The spell must target a different unit each time it's cast in the battle round. So it is unlimited, so you can cast it multiple times. You just can't cast it on the same target. Each time the spell is cast, the casting value does increase. So your second attempt will be casting on a 7, your third attempt will be casting on an 8, so on and so on. However, if the spell is unbound by your opponent, it's not going to count as being cast, so it's not going to increase its level. If you want to really maximize this spell, and it does do some serious damage, the sequence that I think you should start with is start by any wizards that have no casting bonuses. Then move on to any of your wizards that do, things like your Deep Thinkers, things like your Hishian Twin Stones, for example, your Manifestation, who gives you a bonus. Then, at the very end, should you have a Techless, Or if you don't, ignore this part. But if you do, then use Techless at the very end to go for that max 10 casting value. You can cast it multiple times. So as we've mentioned, as you build up the spell, you may want to then use a later spell to target a hero, because you could probably pop an infantry hero on the spot or do some serious damage to a unit when you start going D3+2, D3+3. Unforeseen Force lets you pick a visible enemy unit within 18 inches of the caster, and until the start of your next turn, the target cannot use run abilities. In addition, if that enemy unit has already been picked to be the target for this ability this battle round, subtract 1 from the hit rolls for the target's combat attacks. Now, the spell turns off all run abilities, which is going to include your redeploys, so it helps you plan out your shooting and charging appropriately. Unlike the Beam of Hish that we just spoke about, the spell does allow you to stack effects on the same target. So you can cast the spell twice on the same unit, obviously from a different wizard. And then when we cast it for the second time, we do get that -1 to hit penalty in addition to shutting down the run abilities. Now, despite it being an unlimited spell and being the fact that you can cast it on the same unit, the rule of 1 comes in, so you can't stack it multiple times beyond 2. So for anyone who's thinking, I might get a -2 penalty on that opponent because I want to kind of reduce and mitigate and all that attack and, still keep them on a -1 to hit penalty, you can't do it because of the rule of 1. You can get the -1, just not go beyond -1 for that. So just keep that one in mind, keep it up your back pocket, but you could force them to spend a command point just to get back to the base profile. So something to consider. It is a great spell to reduce the impacts of that high damage melee unit that your opponent has. It'll have a lot of value being able to shut down those units, especially who have like run and charge, as well as anyone who has like movement shenanigans where they might have like a redeploy bonus, or just generally be annoying and stop people from scoring their battle tactics or some things that they want to do by using run and get onto an objective. Again, a great little spell that while it's not a damage dealer like the beam, it will impact the opponent, especially with some smart choices on your battle tactics and your objective scoring. Finally, we have the Beacons of Protection. This doesn't have a target. You don't have to pick a unit to be the target. And until the start of your next turn, it lets you ignore the first point of damage allocated to friendly, non-monster Lumineth Realm-Lords units in each phase, while they are wholly within 9 inches of a friendly Lumineth Realm-Lords wizard. Now, here comes the kicker. Add 3 inches to the range for each additional time this spell has been cast by a friendly wizard this battle round. So, the spell is going to create an aura from every wizard, not just one. Every wizard is going to create this 9-inch wholly within aura with this persistent effect that will ignore the first point of damage allocated in each of the phases. It does affect all of your non-monster Lumineth units, which should cover most of your army, with the exception of like your Spirit of the Mountains, your Spirit of the Wind, and Techless. But otherwise, it should cover almost everybody. And the beautiful thing here is if you cast it multiple times, the spell range increases. So the aura will go from 9 to 12 to 15, and the more you cast it, the bigger the bubble. And that's going to create a massive area of effect where all of your units could be just reducing the damage coming in. And this will be powerful to armies where they are doing damage through multiple phases. Some armies concentrate their damage in the charge and combat or spell casting and things like that. Stormcast, for example, is an army that spreads out and does damage in the, in multiple phases. So this will be really powerful against those. And again, all 3 of these spells are unlimited. And even in the late game where you've got, minimum units left and some things are dying and you're in the critical stages of holding the objective or scoring your battle tactic or trying to kill your opponent, this has the potential to swing games. So Overall, 3 really powerful spells. I guess it depends on, do you prefer powering up your own units? Do you prefer fighting and depowering your opponent? I love this spell lore. It's cooked. You've got 2 alternative war scrolls for the Scourge of Ghyran. The first one we're going to cover is the Light of Aarion. This is an optional war scroll. If you prefer the existing war scroll, you can absolutely choose the old one. You do you. I'm not forcing you to use this one, but at least I'm going to help you compare the 2 war scrolls to explain how the Scourge of Ghyran Light of Aarion is different. So we'll start off with the base profile, and the Fang Sword has gained an attack. So Fang Sword went from 4 attacks to 5 attacks, and you'll notice that the ward has increased. So the ward has gone from a 5-up to a 4-up ward. But it did lose the Spirit Armor ability, and that was your basically ethereal ability that helped you ignore positive and negative save modifiers. It's an interesting change because the 4-up ward mathematically gives you more health onto the profile, but without the Spirit Armor, you are more susceptible to damage, especially against the higher end attacks. But you can now benefit from all that defense and the other ability we're going to talk about in a second. You'll want to start thinking about how you can get the Light of Aarion. In the past, you would use it to go out and hunt down monsters and tank up and hold off the high rend attacks. And that's possibly true still, I guess. You've got the anti-hero and anti-monster abilities. You've got the crit 2 hit. So the melee profile is quite nice, but you're not going to be able to take the hit back as well as you did in the past. But you do have the 4-up save as well. So pros and cons. You did keep the Supreme Swordmaster ability. So even though you don't ignore positive and negative saves anymore, you still do ignore negative modifiers to your hit and your wound roll. So nice against any armies that have a debuff applied. And it can still benefit from positives to your profile. So it can benefit from that martial perfectionist heroic trait that we were speaking about a little earlier. In its place, we did gain a new Eternal Light ability, which is a once per battle reaction for when you declare a summon ability from a Lumineth Realm-Lords unit, and this unit has been destroyed. The summon ability has no effect. Instead, if that spell is cast, you set up a replacement Light of Aarion unit more than 9 inches from all enemy units and wholly within 12 inches of this unit that had summoned the ability. So it's basically got a resurrection in its place. So your opponent is going to have to deal with Aarion twice. So even though you don't, ignore the thing we just talked about, the Spirit Armor, you can be a little bit more aggressive because you know that it's coming back potentially for another round. As long as you keep the wizard or all of your wizards, you need to be able to summon. So you need to keep your wizards on the battlefield. But as long as you can keep a wizard on the battlefield and you have 1 manifestation to cast, you can't put all 3 of them out at the same time. Just be really mindful of this because you will hamper yourself. You'll have to then unbind it or have to get the manifestation into combat and then have it up your sleeve to then try to summon it again and then to bring back Aarion instead of the manifestation. So do yourself a favor. If you've got the Light of Aarion, keep 1 manifestation up your sleeve. And then when it's go time to bring it back the second time, you've got something you can bring in immediately. And when I think about this playing out on the battlefield, in the ideal situation, you would bring Aarion back during a magical intervention because, as we know, when we set up and summon a model, they don't get a movement in the turn that they've summoned. So by summoning him in the magical intervention phase, when it goes into your next turn, you would still get to the benefit of moving and charging and combating and shooting and all the beautiful things that you want to do with this type of model. Overall, I prefer it. I know the Spirit Armor is going to be a hit or miss for you guys. Some of you are not going to be happy and you'll stick to the existing. Cool. Do it. It's available to you. I do think that I prefer this particular War Scroll. But hey, Let me know in the comment section where you stand on this. Maybe there's something that I'm missing here, but I generally do prefer this. The other alternative war scroll is the Venari Banner Blade. And when we compare the two war scrolls, looking at the Scourge of Ghyran Venari Banner Blade, it's gained an extra attack, so it moves the Banner Blade sword from 4 attacks to 5 attacks, which is nice. The big difference here is going to be that it's lost the World Banner ability, and that used to give you the +3 control score to other Lumineth units that were wholly within 18 inches of this unit. But in its place, it's gained a Defend the Banner ability. It's a passive ability, and it adds 1 to the save rolls for friendly Venari infantry units while they're contesting the same objective as this unit. This ability is a little more restrictive than the previous one, given that it's only affecting Venari units like your War Sage Twins, your Sentinels, your Wardens, your Blade Lords. But the ability, you've got to agree with me here, is a lot stronger. With a long list of defensive boost options available to you, things like wards and damage mitigations and attack debuffs, it's going to make your Venari units incredibly tough to chew through while they're contesting an objective along with this Banner Blade. And unlike your updated all-out defense, the +1 save is going to last across multiple combat activations. It's going to work in both shooting and melee attacks, and it's going to save you command point, and you could use command somewhere else. And even if you got a unit who can shut down commands, who cares, because the Banner Blade is still going to be offering that +1 to save. So imagine your Wardens who are on a 4-up save, getting a +1 to the save that's now essentially making them a 3, embracing the charge. You've got your 5-up ward or some type of debuff here, or you're mitigating the point of damage. Like, there's a lot of crazy things you can do here that will make this Banner Blade and Venari infantry unit contesting the same objective just an incredibly tough nut to crack, protecting your shooting units or your wizards or the things sitting behind the scenes. Great little combination here. I think it's definitely worth reconsidering. So overall, this is a very interesting update. If you were to ask me to predict what would Lumineth be getting before I got the PDF, I would have probably guessed something around Stoneguard and your Beefer of Secrets. But I got to admit, I like this update. I like this update. And yes, it's not your Alarith units. I apologize if you are an Alarith player looking for some hope and you are hoping that there'd be some good love for you. Unfortunately, it's not here. Maybe there's something good for you in an upcoming Battle Tome or the next Changel's Handbook. But putting Alarith to a side for a second, I think all 3 of these heroic traits are competitive choices. Alarith, you will get benefit to the Flawless Commander. Apologies there. You still get a little bit, but maybe not as much as like your Venari friends. But outside of the Flawless Commander, which I think is a strong trait, I think the Martial Perfectionist as well are one of 2 of those are my favorite choices of the new options. The new spell lore is fantastic. Upon reading it, I think it's absolutely going to be a really strong choice. Yes, you're giving up protection of Hish and speed of Hish. I guess it depends on, do you prefer debuffing and damaging your opponent, or do you prefer buffing up yourself? I think it's worth at least giving it a shot. I think my early predictions is this is a stronger spell lore overall, but it will go towards a particular player and their play style. We got 2 alternative war scrolls, and I do prefer the Light of Aarion and the Venari Banner Blade in this new list. I think the question will be always with the Banner Blade, is there points for this particular model? And yes, the +1 save is good, but is it going to fit into your list? And I think, look, yes, the Aarion lost the ethereal ability, and it sucks. I get it. It sucks. But overall, when you look at the ward increasing, the ability to come back onto the battlefield from a summon, I think you've gained more than you've lost. So don't let the spirit armor turn you off giving this a shot. I think you've got more of a net win here. And the Banner Blade, going back to that for a second, As soon as I saw that model come out, I got excited because I'm a big lover of the Battle Standard Bearer from Warhammer Fantasy, and I thought the Age of BSBs was returning. It never did. I blame it on you guys partially because you never started taking it, and maybe Games Workshop didn't add any more BSBs because of you. So do me a favor, start running the Banner Blade. The +1 to your save aura is delicious. It is significantly better than the World Banner. Especially, obviously, for those units who are running the Venari style. Obviously, if you're running Alarith, it's not as beneficial. Or if you're running Hurricane, again, not as beneficial. But it's going to combine nicely with your Venari. They're very popular right now, or have been popular in the past. Definitely worth a consideration. But as I've been talking about this, I'm sure you've started getting some list crafting and theory building and tinfoil hatting and thinking about what the world looks like for Lumineth. Why not come over to the AOS Coach Discord server where we have plenty of space to talk about Lumineth and all of the factions as the Scourge of Ghyran impacts our list building. The link is in the episode description, and I hope to see you there talking about our Lumineth Realm-Lords and what this all means for Teclis and hopefully Tyrion one day. He'll come back one day. Come back, Dad, please. Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. Now, if you did, I would love it if you pressed like on the video, as well as left me a comment with your thoughts. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the episode description. I also want to give a massive shout out to the AOS Coach patrons and YouTube members who are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you are all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a double one on a spell cast.